It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a brand new day. It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. How dare the show interfere with our discussion?
I know. It is Wednesday. Oh, inflation numbers for June come out later today.
Ooh.
Gary, how are you? What do you know?
Well, I saw the, what was it, yesterday? You had three of the Fed members, was it two or three of the Fed members said that, we're going to have to raise rates.
Yeah, because it looks like core inflation is still going to be pretty hot.
Yeah.
And that's what they're watching.
And then you look, and we didn't even get into this yesterday. There's so much to talk about, and I wasn't even thinking of talking about it now, but why not?
Why not?
We have 5 hours.
Yeah, why
not? All over the place Wednesday. But the report out that I saw yesterday, the story that businesses are cutting back hours.
Yeah.
So employees are going from, they're still counted as being employed, but they're going from full-time to part-time.
Right.
And then the number was quite high. Here it is. This is from Washington Post. Businesses are cutting workers' hours in a warning sign for the economy. Businesses are starting to cut workers' hours, forcing hundreds of thousands of people into part-time roles, in which could be an early warning sign for the economy. Well, you think about it. One of the things businesses are talking about is the fact that, we need to lay off, but we don't want to. We don't want to lay off because it's too tough to find good people.
Right.
We can't find them to fill the roles. So what do? You say, hey, we're not going to let you go,
cut back the hours.
But we're gonna at least for 6 months you're going to be part time.
Right.
And since so many people are quiet quitters, it's like, well, I'll part-time quiet quit then.
Exactly.
I'm a lot of people probably that are working full-time and get that are like, well, what do I do now? I don't want to quit because probably they may get to keep their health benefits or whatever, but they're cutting back the hours.
When many of them were already looking for ways to make ends meet outside of a full-time job. So now if their hours are being cut in that full-time job, they're going to part-time. It means you're going to have to take on more extra work if you were doing that.
The number of people who work part-time but want full-time rose by 452,000 in June. That's the biggest jump in more than 3 years, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In all, 4.2 million people were employed part-time for economic reasons beyond their control, a 12% increase from the month before.
Yeah.
So you start looking at the danger signs of where the economy is going, and that's it. The one thing politically that the administration has that they can use is the fact that our labor participation rate is so low, and the available people just aren't there.
Right.
We're finally getting hit. We've spent a lot of time talking about this. You don't have women coming into the workforce like you had post-World War II, and then for the next, 60 years, that's not happening anymore. I believe more women are in the workforce now than men.
Yeah.
I think women make up a greater percentage now than men do. You don't have that. And we will never see a baby boom like we had post-World War II.
No, we certainly won't see it with the current generation.
And so you had those two factors that happened in that same 60-year period and 60, 70-year period, and that's done.
Yeah.
And so where do you get the labor from?
Right.
And so that's why you have a lot of jobs open, but you don't have people to fill them because you finally reached that point. And remember, you're talking about 2 to 3% average growth over that probably 70-year period. And in order to keep those jobs and keep those companies in the United States, you had to have those two factors of women coming into the workforce and a baby boom that we will never see again.
Right.
Those two factors.
Yeah.
And so you look at what the future holds, and you and I have talked about this before. We remember that, and this is something that's completely forgotten. Our audience knows about it because we refer to it quite frequently. But when Jim Acosta, the day that he was kicked out of the room back when Trump was president, Trump was talking about the fact that if you're going to increase, if you're going to keep at a 3% growth rate, or that's your goal to do so, you're going to have massive legal immigration to keep those companies here in the United States. If you don't have it, those companies will go away. That was completely lost. At that point.
Obviously you need that greatest asset is the worker. Then beyond that, you have to look at things like cheap and plentiful energy, which in terms of the policy we're moving away from. And
it's a great, go ahead.
When you have that, in the investment outlook for manufacturing in the U.S. Is right now it's pretty bleak. And where they're looking are countries like India and other countries where they have tons of people. They're willing to, again, if they can, supply plentiful, cheap energy. And by the way, I don't know where they're going to get it, but the idea is you can set up manufacturing. You can set up a great deal of manufacturing in countries like that. And the whole, back in the day when you said outsourcing and jobs leaving the U.S. and everything else, people were outraged. In the age of quiet quitting, that outrage isn't there right now. I'm not saying it won't come back, but it isn't there right now. You have a generation that looks at it that has never known working on an assembly line. They didn't have family members that worked on assembly lines. They didn't do things like that. They didn't work with their hands. They've grown up in the technology age where you can work from home. And when it comes to real manufacturing jobs, if they were to leave the few that we have here now, or the planning for the future manufacturing in the U.S., if it's gone, they're not going to notice a thing.
I'm so old that I remember at the beginning of my talk radio career and well into my talk radio career, because probably 10 years ago, if you stated that there are jobs that Americans won't do.
Oh, we get hammered.
You would get hammered.
We did. We said it a few times.
You would, and we said that's what the future is going to bring, because you don't have again the number of people who wish to be in the technical business, and we saw what was happening, and slowly what was happening, and put out that warning, and we would get hammered. Americans will do any jobs, and now if you say that there are jobs Americans won't do, you get zero disagreement.
Yeah.
And it's from that same generation that would have been, which is our generation. Because our generation viewed it differently, because, and we said it to the people that called up. We said, look, we understand why you're saying that, because we grew up in the same generation. You did whatever you had to do.
Oh, yeah. We weren't afraid to go to work.
We didn't sit there. Our generation didn't look at it and say, well, I need a job now because I need to be self-sufficient. I need to take care of my own business here, which means whatever job is open, I'm going to take it. The luxury of working a job, of coming out of school and saying, I will not work unless I can work the job that I will get total and complete fulfillment from. Oh, my God, if you said that when I was young, people just, what are you, nuts?
Well, it's like,
people didn't think that way.
Exactly.
They went to work.
And when the planning for dinner around the house was, you would ask, what are we having? You wouldn't tell your parents what you want for dinner, and which is where it is today. And I'm like, that's totally foreign to me. But it was in terms of jobs, it was an era where you would plan around having that overtime a couple of times a year at least. You wanted that overtime because you wanted that time and a half. That was a raise. You worked harder to get it. but you were willing to do that because that was your raise.
Well, yeah, that was, we spent plenty of time talking about the difference in the culture today. I remember when I worked at the steel plant, or when I worked at another machine shop. Mm-hmm. I was a machinist in both, but when that would come up overtime, oh my gosh, Now there might have been a few people that said, well, with taxes it's not worth it. It's like, of course it is. We're not in that tax bracket of even back where I'm so old. No, but even because I'm not old enough when Kennedy changed when Kennedy really pushed for the to lower taxes. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't paying attention at that. I was alive, but I wasn't paying attention. Yeah. But when the tax rates came down, interesting. How many Democrats know that the president who really pushed, to cut taxes was John Kennedy, a Democrat.
Right. Yeah. No, there's been discussions. I think we've had a couple over the years about had he lived, where would he have remained in the Democratic Party? I mean, I think he would have. Up to a certain point, if he were around today, I don't know that to be the case so much. But, it's when you look at it, though, where we are as a nation and how productive we have been, if you look at it, we were really the pioneers of productivity and on every level. Mm-hmm. And to the point that we became the most productive worker on the planet. And that is changing. It's changing because people, and we remember the two guys that wrote the book where you work to live, not live to work. And they were promoting that, well, our generation doesn't want to work longer than 8 to 5. Well, then it became, we're not sure that we want to work 8 to 5. And if you believe that, well, I'll get by, if you're not worried about it, if you're not worried about your future, your financial future, and your financial independence, if that doesn't bother you to some degree every day, then I can see where people will, we'll just wait for things to come back around again. And it is in part generational to a large degree. But I think, when you look at where manufacturing is going to be in the U.S., the Democrats are killing it. They don't want to, and I don't mean killing it in the proverbial sense where they're out doing a great job. They're literally putting the nail in the coffin, and they're killing it because they don't want manufacturing any longer.
We got a great show ahead, 866-90 Red Eye.
On a hot summer day, the last thing you want to feel is a blast of warm air when you turn on your air conditioning. A malfunctioning AC system will leave you uncomfortably shifting in your seat. Not to mention, it can affect the safety and performance of your entire vehicle and your productivity. When issues with your AC system begin to occur internally, your truck will give you some warning signs. Those include a noisy compressor and a lack of water dripping from the cab drain tube while your AC is running. If you experience either of these warning signs, you should have your AC system inspected by a professional technician immediately. Listen to your truck and invest the time now to avoid spending more time in the shop later on. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just talking about some of the numbers that are out there, that how many people are working part-time jobs and how many people have been moved back to part-time. Latest Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers coming out, and the Washington Post looking at it and saying, "Whoa! I mean, this is big," because it shows that companies don't actually have the amount of work now. that we look at it and go, well, how come they're moving them part-time? Because they don't want to lose the workers. Right. The interesting thing that you said when you talk about future economic growth, and I thought it was really interesting, and I almost interrupted you because I went, what I wanted to say was what a great point, is we were talking about the fact that part of the problem we're going to have in the future is the fact that we don't have a baby boom, we don't have women coming into the workforce as we basically did for a 70-year period. 70 or whatever, I'm just throwing that number out. It might be 65, might be 80. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. And then you made the great point. You said, we have, that's going to be a problem filling the jobs, and then energy costs are going to skyrocket because of what the Democrats are doing. That's a great point. Yeah. And if you look at what Bidenomics is, and I'm so glad that he actually wants to call it Bidenomics, because we can look at it and say, well, what is it? And what it is, as we have seen, especially with the automobile industry, it is about creating, it is about government subsidizing products that they want to mandate the public buy.
Yeah, right.
The public doesn't want it.
Right.
Because of the product that they wish the American public to buy, the cost of producing it is way over what Americans can afford. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's why you've got the unions screaming, because the unions are saying, we're getting the hit because you can't make a profit on it.
Right.
It's way too expensive. The consumer can't buy it. By the way, I think it was, forgot who had it. We'll get to the story about cars piling. Axios had it. Electric cars piling up in dealerships. They can't sell them.
Right.
And they're talking about, well, we're going to have whatever it is, all electric vehicles by California by, was it 2036, whatever. No, you're not.
You can lead a horse to the dealership, but you can't make it drive an EV.
So when you don't have, and I think it's really, when you take all these variables and put it together, it's like, whoa, man. I mean, it's almost like looking at the debt and, where we're going with the debt.
Right.
We don't have the workers to begin with, but government is ensuring that workers aren't going to, number one, make as much money, that the government will decide what the population wants by stating, okay, here's what we have no idea what we're doing. We're completely clueless. Our goals consistently change. We're hypocritical all the time. We'll do things that are actually against our own narrative, but it sounds good.
Yeah, right.
So we're still going to do it. We're going to produce products that Americans don't want, that Americans can't afford, that the companies can't make a profit on, and we'll take tons of taxpayer dollars to throw into it. We'll kill the unions, because this is what UAW is saying. You're killing us.
Right.
You're killing us because of all of this. And then the union solution is, well, we need more taxpayer dollars to go to the unions. So all this government money that we can't afford to put in, because we've seen what it does to inflation, everything we're doing is wrong.
Yes. It's backwards. We are demolishing progress. It is the very demolition of progress. And if you look at, too, the energy sector and the number of jobs that has brought about over the years. Now, there's an ebb and flow when it comes to energy, or has been, when it comes to energy production in the U.S. But it's been more consistent in recent years. And even if you're not working in the field wearing a hard hat, you in the supportive roles, the service industry in the Gulf area has been booming for years because they play such a supportive role. And all of that is gone if the left has their way. All of it is gone. And you will see a great deal of wealth from everybody just absolutely vanish.
Giving you 70% each night. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. So download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why don't you do it? And then you can listen when and where you want. If you can't listen, like you are right now, live overnight, which is the preferred way.
That's the preferred way.
It's a preferred way because then you are intellectually stimulated live.
That's right. And there's no greater way to be intellectually stimulated than live. I'm tuning in to the World Series of Poker main event. It's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like grown to, I haven't tuned in years. And it came up, some of the clips came up on YouTube. And they're doing some things live, like a live preview, but you have to go to, it's a CBS-owned pokergo.com, and you have to subscribe for the main evening events. But Nate Silver from 538 is in the money. Yeah. He's going to make, I didn't check his Twitter today. I'm having issues with my Twitter. And he's.
Well, it's a personal problem.
It sounds like a personal problem. I'm going to go to the drugstore on the way home. And he says, so that kind of caught my eye. And I was like, okay, there's a name I know. But apparently it was like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of people got in on the buy-in. And then the top 1,500, just over 1,500, get money. And then the top prize, I think that the total prizes, there's a guy in the NFL, and I forget his name, and forgive me for that. He's in the money, and he made a point on social media the other day that the prize is more than one of the NFL greats' like entire earnings for his career. It's like approaching $100 million. I don't know if that's the top prize because I only caught a glimpse of it. But it's a lot more than it used to be.
Richard Seymour?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Rich Seymour.
Okay.
And he's been doing pretty well. And apparently so is Nate Silver. I was trying to catch Nate Silver on some of the featured tables because that's what they do. They'll hop around from table to table. And Seymour's been featured and interviewed a couple of times. I haven't seen it. I probably missed it where Nate Silver was. But as of this time yesterday, Nate Silver was in the money. He was so I don't know how he did during the day on Tuesday. But they've got live the watch it live. When you said live, listen to us live.
Mm-hmm.
What you could watch part of it. What you don't see, when ESPN used to carry it, it was all edited down. And what you don't see is the, entire thing. And now with digital, they can show pretty much all of it.
By the way, his career earnings, $90 million.
Yeah, $90 million.
From football, not poker.
Yeah, there you go. Big, right.
But talking about it, I thought this was a perfect way just to tie this in. We were talking about the fact that the Bureau of Labor Statistics showing how many people going to part-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Huge increase in just the last month.
Mm-hmm.
And Washington Post had the story saying, is that an indicator of where the economy is going? And sometimes we'll just sit back and go, okay, what are the economic factors that exist out there, and where are we going, and what is the solution to it? Well, the solution is the government to get the hell out of trying to be the central planner of the economy, as we're seeing right now. We see it in the auto industry. We're seeing it in energy, and it's just insanity. I mean, it's absolute insanity. And we talk about the radical transgender activist movement, the insanity there. Well, what the Democrats wish to do with the economy is just as big as an insanity, because they're doing everything completely 180 degrees wrong.
Yeah.
And they keep, promoting it. We don't have the money to do it anymore. If you're going to have the government be the central planner, they're not going to be able to make a profit, which means they're going to have to use a tremendous amount of taxpayer dollars, which is going to increase inflation and even make it worse and worse and worse. The other factor, though, is when we talk about the fact, because we've talked about what you would need, we would have to, Trump was right when he said legal immigration is going to have to increase if we want to have a growth rate of 2 to 3%. If that's your goal, if your goal is 3%, you have no other choice. We're not going to have, when you see the labor force that was needed back then, it's needed now. It isn't the fact when you see, we're always told that there aren't going to be any jobs.
Right.
But there's always jobs. And there's going to continue to be jobs. It may shift. But we also have, we talk about culture. And even though our vice president has no idea what culture is, culture is the environment that you grow up in. It's the influences. It's everything that from religion to your neighborhood to your parents to your family to your school. And that's the culture that you grew up in. And we were talking about the difference in culture where when we were growing up, you never really thought about the fact that you hoped that you could work a job that you liked, but you didn't view that as an absolute.
Right.
It was like if you could ever get there, that would be great, but what you did and what you were really concerned with was being self-sufficient and being able to survive. And you and I have talked about that survival mode, that it doesn't matter, it wouldn't matter how much money I made. In my mind, I'm always thinking that this could end at any time.
Yeah.
And that's how prepared I have to be. I've had people come up to me and say, it must be great to just sit there and not worry about your job and just because they think you get to a certain point and it's just automatic pilot.
Yeah, right.
You just go in every day and just do it because it's natural. Now, I'm not saying you and I've talked about David Lee Roth talking about the 30,000 hour the concept.
Right.
He was asked one time, are you scared when you go on stage? And he said no, because 30,000 hour thing. He goes, what's 30,000 hours? Well, once you do something for 30,000 hours, it becomes part of who you are. It becomes much more natural.
Yeah.
So it may not seem, you're doing the work every day in the preparation, but it doesn't seem like it anymore because your whole mind is so accustomed to doing it every day that in your life, it's a lot more relaxing to do it. But the preparation and work still has to be put in, and you and I have always focused on that. The other thing is, and this had come out, Axios had this one too, that all major demographic groups led by Republicans are less confident in higher education than they were just a few years ago. A Gallup poll came out on Tuesday. Now, this is important because we do have a mismatch. There are still a ton of people that can work in this country, but there's a lot of jobs that are mismatched to them.
Yeah, right.
Well, what changes that? When you look overall at where you're going to go in an economy, what changes that? Well, what changes that is want.
Yeah.
Is the fact that government isn't giving me any money. Government can't afford to give me money anymore. No matter what anybody thinks over the next 50 years, all the benefits that people are receiving now, all of it's going to be reformed and evolved in some way. And it's not going to be as much. We can't afford to do it because the debt.
Yeah, we've hit that wall.
Because the debt the debt that we have right now. So, and there's ebb and flows all the time through society. It isn't you get to one point and it's always going to be that way because you can't provide everything to everybody. Government can't do it. And so what you're going to have, and you're seeing it right now, you're seeing, more states, saying, okay, trade school is a place it's going to be. If you're going to, you're going to have to, and I think there will be an ebb and flow where because of want, because government won't provide it for you. And I think COVID perverted everything for a significant, for a short period of time, but it did have an impact on the culture. I really don't have to work that hard. Okay, I'll wait. The whole quiet quitting concept. Well, when you have, and we've talked about this, what was it, like 60% or 70% of young people between the ages of, 21 and 34 are still getting significant support from their parents? Yeah. Well, the parents are going to die.
Yeah, at some point that's gone.
The parents are going to die. That's life, as we all know. Eventually, the money is going to be gone, and so it's like, okay, how do we view our institutions right now? And when you look at here, that Just 36% of Americans say they have confidence in higher education. It was 57% in 2015. Not even half of Americans. You went from 57% to 36%. That's unbelievable when you think about it. Because I don't have confidence, which means I'm not going to spend that money.
Right. I don't believe it's going to do me any good to spend that money. There's not going to be a return on that investment.
All major subgroups express less confidence in higher education, especially Republicans. And you had here, by 2018, less than half of Republicans and independents felt confidence about the college institution, compared with 62% of Democrats. This year, Republican confidence dropped to 19%. Independents dropped to 32%. Democrats dropped to 59%. Democrats are the only key subgroup with majority-level confidence in higher educations, but the vast majority of people do not. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's in the toilet right now, which means what? If you believe you're going to get a job, and if you're a Democrat and you believe that where the world is going, you can get a gender studies degree or an English degree, and that's going to provide you with the financial wealth that you need, that's not going to be the case. Everything always will be, and because of higher technology and the need for productivity, everything is going to be in higher technical jobs. That's where all the great jobs have always been: engineering, designing, architecture, all of that. And then the people actually to understand how to put together. AI just doesn't exist.
It requires humans.
It requires humans to plan it and do it. We are going into a society that will even be more dependent on higher technical education, which is not where the colleges are going at all.
No.
It's not where they're going.
No.
The colleges are more concerned with wokeness and political correctness and teaching racism. And that's not what makes a society productive.
And in fact, I would say that much of industry would rather do their own training and schooling.
That's a great point. We've talked about that.
Because you look at a number of things where there are so many proprietary factors in play every day. Just look at the difference between an Android phone and an iPhone, and right there, and everybody understands the proprietary issues between the two. So when you apply that to all the different sectors of the industry, of all industry, then you have to understand that there are so many proprietary issues that they would rather bring you in-house and have that training based on that, because they understand a couple of things. That they're going to, if they can pre-qualify you, instead of you being at a technical school or something like that, they bring you in and they pre-qualify you, they bring you in and they train you, then they're likely going to have someone that is there because you're going to be trained based on their proprietary system and their products, whatever it's going to be. And if you leave their place of employment, your skills don't necessarily apply anywhere else. That's as good as an agreement that keeps you there. That's basically building in that job security for them and you. And I see that being the trend going forward.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I also see that in the future, I see states actually I see business state partnerships in training and education in the future.
Yeah.
And, you look at where, people talk about liberal arts, and not that it doesn't have its place, but there comes to a point where want is what drives the labor force as to where they go and what they prepare for. Nobody talks about quiet quitting when you're hungry.
We talked about that when it started, and there, at some point there was going to be the ebb and flow, but at some point there was going to be a return to, okay, wait a minute, I can't just sit around anymore because things are too expensive, and you're going to have to get back to working as hard as you did before. Maybe you're not doing the same thing. Maybe you're doing a different job, but there is no doubt that will return.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. We, me and he.
Hello.
I'm Gary McNamara. He is Eric Harley, and good morning. Just one more thing.
What?
Just a little bit relating in a humorous way. Just the headline. This story is actually a couple of days old. I think it's from 3 days ago, but I just kept it because I love the headline. Bed rotting is self-care, some insist, but mental health experts share warnings about the social media trend. Now, remember, we had quiet quitting that turned into if you accelerate where quiet quitting leads to, it's bed rotting. Lounging in bed all day might seem lazy, but some Gen Z trend followers are now embracing it as a form of self-care. Bed rotting. Now, see, the thing is, our generation created that.
We know how to be lazy.
Well, no. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys.
John and Yoko? Was that? No, that was something different. Never
something
mind.
Different. No, remember? I mean, the Bare Naked Ladies actually did a song. Brian Wilson, lying in bed like Brian Wilson did. This is not new stuff. Bed rotting, the practice of spending long periods of time snuggled under the covers with snacks, screens, and other creature comforts, is gaining popularity on social media. Now, again, George Costanza did that in the 90s on Seinfeld.
Trying to think of how long I could go.
The unofficial definition per the Urban Dictionary for bed rotting is the Gen Z term for staying in bed for days on end.
Days?
Binging on Netflix, TikTok, and
Wow.
Hinge. I don't know what Hinge is.
How do you pay for all that?
Well, Mommy, Daddy, what's my allowance?
Brian Regan has a bit.
For God's sakes, you're 40.
Brian
the
Regan
hell
has,
out of the house.
Brian Regan has a bit. I read in the paper the other day where 40% of adults have moved back in with their parents. I was like, wow. I was like, Mom, did you hear this? I love Brian Regan. For days, and you're not sick.
Yes.
I mean,
are these
the closest lately if I wasn't sick. Even if I am sick, I like to get up and move around. I like to prove to other people I'm not dead. But we had a bit of a ice storm, and we were out for a day, and it happened to also be the day that Nate Bargatze's latest special on Amazon, Hello World, came out, and I watched that. It's an hour long. That's about if it's stand up, I can watch for an hour. I've gotten to where I really can't finish a movie. I just can't sit still. You know, when the weather's nice, you want to get up, you want to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Days?
Yeah, that's what they say. Are these, now this is from Fox News, had this headline, Melissa Ruddy had this. Are these extended siestas really wise for one's mental health? Or could they be a cause of concern? If it was Axios, they would have said, why this matters. Fox News Digital reached out to some professionals for their take on this leisurely trend. Dr. Ryan Sultan, a board-certified psychiatrist, research professor at Columbia University in New York, and medical director of the Integrative Psych NYC, who treats many young patients, called the bed rotting trend fascinating. In our current culture, with too much to do, too many expectations, and too much productivity, many individuals are feeling burned out and often aren't getting enough sleep. It's easy to see why the taking time off to lie around literally is appealing. In many ways, this is beneficial. It's a chance to clear your head, recharge, and regroup before returning to life in a better frame of mind. On the flip side, however, he said a long-term need or desire for bed rotting could be a warning sign. Duh!
You think? Here's my mindset. I feel like I missed something. I feel like I probably didn't follow through, on something I was supposed to do. I mean, depending on how days. Okay, let's say I did that for 2 days. If I did that for 2 days, then first of all, somebody does need to check on me. But if I get up after that 2 days, I'm going to feel like I've got a world of things to do to catch up on either things that I missed, things I was supposed to do during that time, responsibilities. And I would feel like, oh my gosh, I had to apologize to everyone. That's kind of how I feel if I'm really sick and can't get out much. And that, that does happen. But you feel like you've let people down.
When I got to my normal retirement age a few years ago, I never considered retiring because I'm having too much fun.
Right. You can watch Matlock now.
I can watch Matlock when I wake up.
Right.
In fact, when I wake up, most of the time, Alf is on.
I saw an Alf clip the other day.
Hey, Willie. Friends with presents are the best friends of all. But no, Matlock is actually on when I wake up. It's funny because I had tons of friends that love Matlock, and I've watched a couple of episodes, and they're not bad. I mean, it's Andy Griffith, so he's always great. But I mean, I never took to it like so many people I know did. But I don't take to a lot of television. But I think about last week when I was on vacation, and because I sleep now when I work 2 sleep shifts, like 6 to 10 and 6 to 10, or lately it's been now 6 to, because it's just the time of the year, 6 to 8:30, and then like yesterday 4:30 to 10. It changes during I go to sleep when I'm tired, and I wake up when it's time to wake up. But when I'm on vacation, I can shut down, and I'll go to sleep at 10 o'clock. I did this a couple of times at my dad's house. Went to sleep at 10 o'clock and woke up at 6:30, 7 o'clock the next morning going, wow. But I don't lay in bed.
Yeah.
I just don't lay in bed. The only time I lay in bed is when I wake up in the morning, but I'm laying in bed to do show prep. Yeah. I wake up and I grab my phone. I'm looking, I'm going, okay, all right, do I have the show tonight? Do I have all the topics? I actually look at it and go, so I'm being productive in bed. I don't think that's bed rotting. That's bed productivity. I'm laying in bed, but I'm planning the show in my head as I look at it.
Yeah, working nights for nearly 27 years, you learn that if you're going to be productive, some of that is going to have to be, at your little workstation, which is exactly what I have set up. Yeah.
And so when you look at this, well, we need the time to relax. For me, it came, one of the things that I thought about when I got to my normal retirement age is, do I want to have too much to do? Because I can never get everything done right now. Nothing is ever completed.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know that feeling.
Yeah.
Most people probably know that.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I retired, I would get everything done and would have nothing to do. I don't ever want to get to that point.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the people ask, well, why? And next week it's going to be interesting because next Friday I fly into New York. I get in like 4:45, and at 7 o'clock is not. I'm only going to the first day. Is the whatever, I guess, cocktail party, social party. Is my 50th high school reunion.
All right.
And I know I'm going to get questions from, why are you still working? Why are you still working? And it's this simple. And I've had this discussion. It's not even, I love talking the issues that we talk. It's great to do that. But the reason I love doing this and the reason I don't want to quit is my mind works faster than it's ever done before in my whole life. Mm-hmm. And it's because I've done this for so long. David Lee Roth, the 30,000 hour thing, where you think quicker. And you and I talk about this at times when we're just going back and forth and the chemistry's really hitting and the mind's working like crazy and everything works out and you finish and you say, how the hell did I do that?
Yeah.
How did we do that?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at my brain. How did I do that with Eric? How did that go back and forth? It's that kind of thing, doing the show, and your mind is working, and you can feel your mind working. One thing I have been able to do over my life in radio is know the fact of, and many people have been in radio probably could relate to this, that you get on and your mind goes blank.
Right.
You're not sure what to say, whether it's nervousness, intimidation, whatever. Well, when you get to the point where that's no longer a thing and your brain just goes and you're talking into a microphone and you're doing a radio show and your mind is processing thoughts and blurting them out back and forth, there's a high to that.
Yeah.
And so with me, having the mind extremely busy is actually an enjoyable process for me. So I don't think that bed rotting is something that I would be too keen on.
It would be bothersome to me. It would make me nervous after just a couple of days.
Yeah.
Because I would feel like I'm not making a contribution. And that's, I think, probably the case with a lot of people. And it's one thing if you need the rest, your doctor's told you, look, you need bed rest for a week or something like that. Then you should probably be as cozy and comfortable as possible. Mm-hmm. And if you believe you need a reset, I think it's also I don't know. Look, I'm not a doctor, but just as a layman, it would be more productive, I think, if you set, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. It's raining, the weather is bad, or whatever. I'm going to stay in today. I'm just going to enjoy a day of laying around watching TV. And know that, all right, that's going to be the day I'm going to be, and then at the end of this day, I go back to my routine. It's because our second daughter was very nervous in high school about studying. She was so nervous about failing a test. But she's a highly productive person. That nervous energy actually works for her and has worked for her in a career. But then it was something that I felt, okay, let's address it. What do you see as your best environment for study, for actually learning something and actually taking in this information? And we set up that environment in a room. I said, what do you need? I'll make it happen. Those are things that you can look at. If you're talking about hiding from the world, which is what bedrotting sounds like to me, then you're also hiding from something that you see as a problem, that there's probably issues going on. Nothing wrong with the reset and being lazy for a day. But if you believe pulling the covers over your head is going to make your problems go away, you'll find in the long run that if you address those problems, you'll have a lot more of those lazy days that you can choose, and you'll also be productive.
Now, the real reason I can't bed rot is I've got a great mattress, and I can sleep for 6-7 hours fine. But if I spend 10 hours in bed, my back hurts.
Yeah, I can't lay still that long. And I also get bored.
Oh yeah,
I get bored pretty quickly. So binge watching isn't a thing for me. I can't do that.
No. Last thing I binge watched was Jack Reacher. So that was about a year ago.
Yeah.
Because it's still not out yet.
Yeah, right.
It's still not out from Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I think I watched in one day, and I think it was raining out that day. Because when you said I related to last Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
I had all these plans. I woke up early.
Right.
I'm still on vacation. I got to get this done. I wake up, it's pouring.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, watch TV. And I felt like, okay, I can't do it, so I'm justified. But the Jack Reacher last year is the last time I binge watched something. I just can't do it.
Right.
I can go to YouTube and I can let it go and be working around the house and go, oh, what's that? And sit down and watch something for 20 minutes. But
yeah,
just not us. We're not good bed rotters.
No.
866-90 Red Eye.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company, but there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella with advanced synthetic technology. For more information, go to overdriveonline.com to the Overdrive's Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on Business 101 and many other topics.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now we must talk about what the children have said and done. And the children we're talking about, in this case, the liberal city of Washington, D.C. The D.C. Council on Tuesday passed an emergency crime bill aimed at giving judges more leeway as the city grapples with a sharp rise in violent crimes. Ahead of the vote, Council of the District of Columbia Chair Phil Mendelson said, "You can get away with murder in this city." The statement was a notable pivot from comments he made in March when he suggested that the perception of high crime was overshadowing the reality on the ground. I know this belies his common belief, And when it comes to crime, how people feel is important, but there is not a crime crisis in Washington, D.C., Mendelson said at the time. D.C. police data reveals a staggering increase in crime across the board between 2022 and 2023. Homicides are up 17%. Sex abuse is up 35%. Robberies are up by more than 50%. The emergency public safety bill includes elements of a controversial crime bill that Congress voted to overturn this year. Critics of the earlier version argued that it was too soft on certain crimes. The new bill increases penalties for various offenses like firing a gun in public, strangulation, and carjacking. Wow. We'll talk more on this.
Wow.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So when you see the headline, D.C. Council passes emergency crime bill amid sharp rise in violent crime, you just shake your head. You just go, well, what did you expect?
Yeah, right.
What in the world are you thinking? I mean, this is when you look at it, when you see that the one council district chair said, oh, this is March.
Yeah.
We're now in just the beginning of July.
Right.
There's no crime problem here. Everything is fine.
Right.
People can get away with murder here.
Yeah, what were they saying back then? What you see on the news isn't what's happening on the ground. In other words, the reports are false. That was back in March. It's not really a problem. And now they're screaming. The only thing it can be is constituents are just furious that they would let this happen.
The new bill increases penalties for various offenses like firing a gun in public, strangulation. Well, I'm sorry, but just having that in there, I was like, why, were they going light on strangulation? Well, it's just, come on, it's a love neck tug.
Look, one man's strangulation is another man's hug.
It's a neck hug.
It's a neck hug.
The bill also makes it easier for judges to keep violent crime suspects in custody while awaiting trial. Oh, that too? Councilwoman Brooke Pinto, who sponsored the bill, told reporters on Monday that D.C. is in a state of emergency. And like in any emergency, we have to act like it. We have to act urgently as a government to address the problem that we're seeing.
This isn't new.
The bill passed 12-1.
Okay.
Emergency session yesterday. Look, I'm not laughing at the crime.
No. It's just ridiculous that we've gotten to this.
I'm laughing and mocking the politicians. Oh, defund the police. Oh, crime isn't a problem. Oh, we can be, we don't need bail.
Right.
And all of a sudden, boom, switch like that. Well, apparently, if we're not tough on criminals, those criminals will commit crimes that criminals commit.
Violent criminals will be even more violent because they know they're not going to jail.
We thought that being nice to evil people would make them less evil. I mean, it's just this is where we get to the point as conservatives saying we're dealing with children. And this is a perfect example of dealing with children that live in some type of delusional fantasy world until reality hits. Yeah, but this is another case of what we have said. The time and place that we're in right now in 2023, and it's when the abstract politicians selling you abstract concepts, which are looking out to the future and saying, no, if we do this with crime and don't punish the criminal, there will be less crime.
Yeah,
the criminal is a victim.
Right.
The criminal is this is all racism. Well, you have one of the highest concentrations of blacks in D.C., in the entire United States. And they're saying we need to crack down right now. There is no talk about, well, wait a minute. You don't hear the city council now talking yesterday about, well, okay, we have to worry because we're going to have more of a percentage of blacks. The majority of people that will be arrested and will come under this law are black. You don't hear that now. Why? Because reality is hitting. And it's like, well, we don't care what the color of the skin is. All we care about is there are criminals out there that we need to stop, which is the correct way to look at it.
Exactly. And when the left abandoned law and order, there's only one direction for that to go. You threw a match into dry grass. What do you think's going to happen? You don't have to be a genius. And in March, they were still arguing the point. Well, that's not what's going on the ground. What you're seeing in the news isn't what's going on the ground. And now, you can get away with murder. Yeah. It was bound to happen. Was it 50 Cent the other day saying California's so bad with the crime?
With the no bail that L.A. is gone because of what they've done.
And we know the stories about San Francisco. Don't even do we even need to bring up Portland?
No. And it was a duh.
Yeah. Right. And over again, New York City, of course, you have to include in all this. I saw another celebrity when we were on vacation said that they were moving from New York. And the comment was like, yeah, things are getting a little crazy. They didn't want to come out and say, the crime is skyrocketing. And the fact of the matter is that you can't live in areas like this. So what do you have left when people are leaving, companies are leaving? Well, there's a higher concentration of crime, especially when you're not putting them or keeping them in jail.
And you move because you have no confidence that in the future, even if temporarily they panic as what's going on here,
right.
There is no confidence that a year down the road or 2 years down the road, unless you change the direction of that political party. And this is something, I remember it was 2018 when I said, my God, the Democrats have to change. You can't continue to go down the road of this insanity. And let's say this, the insanity is much greater than I thought it was going to be in 2018. I didn't think that they would still believe that they could survive now.
Right.
They're backing off on some of the crime stuff, but as we see on the liberal transgender radical movement, they're going they're going further than I ever thought they would go. And on the critical race theory, on identity politics, are going further than they've ever gone before. On promoting an economy that is the government subsidizing companies that can't be profitable and the government dictating to the public what they should buy in electric vehicles, that has skyrocketed the cost of electric vehicles where nobody can make a profit on them. Number one, because the customer will not buy it for that price. The customer doesn't want it. The customer can't afford it. And the companies can't make a profit, even with the subsidies, where now even the unions, as we brought to you yesterday, the UAW, screaming, we're making half the pay with electric vehicles. Well, that's what happens when you produce a product that companies cannot make a profit on.
Right.
Well, then give us more government money, the union. Then give us more government money. We need the government money. I mean, it's pure insanity, but any idiot could have seen it coming. We did. Right. And we're pretty big idiots.
Yeah.
And if the two idiots overnight could see it coming, it's not that hard to figure out.
It really isn't. And this is why we talk about with the rank and file Democrat. The rank and file Democrat, this is what I believe is going on in D.C. I believe that they're hearing from their constituents, not that the rank and file Democrats are becoming more conservative. But we're talking about the simple process, everything under the umbrella of law and order, and how it was thrown out the window. And the result of that kind of policy. Because what did we see? Defund the police? Yes. What about your neighborhood? Well, no. The other ones.
And that was at this was at the height of defund the police.
Exactly.
When the polling was done in these neighborhoods.
Don't change anything in my neighborhood. And what is that instinct? That is the instinct of preservation. Well, no, I want the protection of the police locally, but those others in other cities and other towns, no. We need to do something about them. It's always problems elsewhere, but don't change anything in my town. Well, they actually did change in major metro areas the policies, and to the extent of, in New York, a prosecutor in Bragg that, well, if you don't shoot anybody with a gun while committing a robbery, then we won't charge you with a felony. You had all of these things, bail reform and everything else that has led to this point. And there was no doubt you were going to hear from the people of D.C. We can't handle this any longer. We can't live here any longer. We don't feel safe here any longer. And over again, we've seen this play out. Sanctuary city policy. And next thing you know, Mayor Adams in New York is asking the courts to undo the sanctuary city policy. If I were a judge in that setting, I would say, you and the city council have to change that. Go fix your own problem that you created. These are the things that happen when you decide you're going to live in a delusional world. Reality kicks you hard.
And that's where we are right now across the board.
Yep.
On social issues, on cultural issues,
yep.
On fiscal issues.
Yep.
And it's like it's all hit at the same time.
It's not it's not abstract. We talked about this on so many fronts where it's not the abstract discussion. Well, if we send a social worker to talk to them, maybe the gunman will change his mind.
And were they talking social workers in
D.C.?
In D.C. yesterday?
I don't think so. Maybe I missed it. And those are the things where you look at it and say, we can either do this the right way or not. There has to be law and order. We are a nation of laws. Law and order is required. Law enforcement is required. Each of those issues along the way have to be dealt with swiftly for that very reason, to make sure that we can maintain law enforcement and no one is above the law, even those who enforce the law. But we don't change the policy to say, well, we'll just let them back out on the street until they go to trial when they're a violent criminal. This is what is going to happen. And I can't imagine what the major metro areas would be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if they don't reverse this policy. It will be unlivable.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, following the top of the hour, Cocainegate. Oh, God. Just so everybody knows, yesterday, because we were talking about the whole cocaine thing in the White House, and it was like, I was like, well, a toke of, wait a minute, it's not a toke, is it a toot, whatever it is? So it's like
a snort,
whatever. And I actually went
inhale
in our pre-show meeting. I said, wait a minute, what did Skinner say about that in the song "That Smell"? I know they mentioned coke, and it was a blow for your nose is the lyrics.
Okay,
it's like, okay, we need to get with this White House. We need to ensure that we are up to date on the latest drug lingo.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the fact that the president too busy.
Yeah, for the NATO dinner.
Right, for the NATO dinner.
He's too busy to even have dinner.
See, it was like the third.
Yeah.
He's on vacation 40% of the time. Yeah, he's too busy.
Yeah.
It's like
too busy.
When Obama said, remember when Obama ticked off liberals?
Yeah.
When he said, well, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I don't have time
on
to
gun
talk
control. Yeah.
To deal with gun control. And it's like, well, let's look at how much time you've taken off. And remember, we figured out if you just...
1 hour a week.
Right, if you played...
And that would be a lot.
If you played one less... I think it was actually golf. If you played one less round of golf. Mm-hmm. Now, look, I've got no problem if any president plays golf or goes on vacation because I know they're always busy. But when they say that they're too busy to do something, that the schedule is just... They're swamped all the time, and they're on the golf course. Sorry, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Or not buying on the golf
and
course.
And too busy for dinner?
Yeah. No, there's a reason. We'll tell you what that reason is coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Well, Martina Navratilova had another one-word response to Megan Rapinoe's remarks on, that transgender women are real women. Yikes, was the response. I think she did that a couple of weeks ago also.
Yeah.
Had that same response, because when I saw that yesterday, I went, deja vu. That's a couple of weeks old. Oh, right. She's just using the same response.
Right.
See, Rapinoe said Dave Chappelle is responsible for all the violence.
What?
Yeah.
No. Absolutely not. The people committing violence are responsible for the violence. That's the way it always is.
Right. What violence?
Yeah, any violence is a result of a violent individual committing that violence. Right. And maybe I missed it in the news, but I haven't seen anywhere where Dave Chappelle, in fact, who's responsible for the attempted attack of Dave Chappelle on stage?
Yep.
I mean, we can get into it if you want. Yeah, this is this is where the left is, this, with this kind of weak approach, because they know they're losing. And Rapinoe is, retiring. She doesn't have to stand up for anything anymore. What about the other players?
Well, I love how she says, well, I would accept a transgender woman taking the place of somebody on the U.S. soccer team as she retires.
As she's not going to be affected by that.
Right. She won't be affected by it. So, yeah, she's okay with it now.
Yeah, she's okay with it now.
Intellectually, she's such a lightweight. She really, really is.
Right. Let's ask all the other players. Let's take a poll. I think I'd be okay with an anonymous poll. You don't even have to get the names.
No.
Let's do. In fact, you probably would do better on the poll. I think it stands to reason. You would get more honest answers if it were anonymous.
I asked a question yesterday because I think it's a question that does she wish she was a man?
Right. Right.
Does her self-misogyny come from the fact that she hates being a woman? I have to ask that question because it doesn't make any sense. What clear-thinking woman would say, yes, it's okay for a man to replace me on the sports team?
Yeah.
Now, she's saying it again, that she'd be okay with it, as it's never going to happen to her.
It's not going to affect her.
Right. So the virtue signaling can be as great as you want when it doesn't affect you.
Right.
And so it just sits in my head. I go, the self-misogyny there is just so incredibly great because she seems to be emphasizing this. And I just wonder, I said, does she hate being a woman?
Yeah,
because I don't understand what is about. How did the women's movement, the liberal women's movement, collapse to the will of men?
And that's where it is.
And that's where they are right now. To the point where she is stating that if you don't collapse to the will of the man, and this is the man defining what a woman is, that the man gets to decide what a woman is because the man says so. And if you don't do what the man says, then you are trying to legislate away people's full humanity.
And what about when a transgender wants to be on the team, and let's say that their talent is comparable to somebody that they're competing with to make a spot on the team? Well, who do you think is going to be chosen? Remember when the story came out recently that said, well, look, you can't say anything about it. In women's sports, you can't. This is the way it's going to go. This is how it's going. We're going to award this to this person because that's how we need our sport to be portrayed. We're just going to hand it over because that's what you do in 2023.
Well, that's what the one swimmer said.
Yep. We were told not to say anything about it.
And we were told, no, it has to go. The trophy's
going to have to go.
We know you tied Leah Thomas, but the trophy has to go to Leah Thomas because that's the image that we need to portray.
Right. Sorry.
That men need to be recognized in women's sports.
And that's the way it will play out for the foreseeable future. Unless you have enough women standing up and saying, enough. Stop it. This is ludicrous.
Yep.
The organizations can do whatever they want. They can make their choices along the way. They can kick women to the curb repeatedly.
Doesn't change the truth.
Nope. And it's not a win for them. It's not a win for the organizations. It's not a win.
It's not a win for women.
Nope. It's a win for one person. And this is the entire Title IX. This is our interpretation of Title IX, according to the Obama administration and liberals now. Well, that's not what Title IX is about. Because if anybody can belong to a protected group simply by saying so, there are no protected groups.
Yeah, it's really pretty. I mean, it's amazing how they keep doubling down on it. But I think there's enough force, and as we have said, there has to be enough opposition and force against against this.
It's going to take, in this case, it's going to take other team members standing up saying, we're not going to do this.
Yeah. And you're full of it.
Right.
And you can have as much compassion because I have compassion for anybody who's having problems, figuring out who they are or what they are. But I have compassion for anybody who struggles with life.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean I'm going to make stuff up.
No.
Doesn't mean I'm going to lie to them.
No.
You need to lie to. Look, they've got problems. They don't know what's going on in their mind. This is what they believe. They believe they're a woman, yet they're a man. Well, I hope they get all the help they possibly can get. Oh, no. The help isn't the problem. Even, by saying that they need help, you're being transphobic.
We need to change all the definitions.
Well, you're telling me that they're having a problem, and you're the ones telling me that their suicide rate is much greater than the general public, so I'm not the one that's setting the table. You are.
Right.
And you're asking me to do what? Well, you need to lie to them and tell them that they are biological women. Well, no, that doesn't work that way in the real world. Well, we live in the delusional world, in the fantasy world.
Yeah.
And the fantasy world supersedes the real world.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't. So it's just...
I'm not going to live in a world of delusions, and I'm not going to change definitions.
Listen to this one. Rapinoe was one of 40 professional athletes to co-sign a letter to House lawmakers in April in opposition of the Protection of Girls and Women's in Sports Act, arguing the bill would exclude women and girls from getting mental and physical health benefits. Where? It's particularly frustrating when women's sports is weaponized. Oh, now we care about females. Now we care about women's sports. And you know what that's about. They're not getting equal pay.
Right. Which was one of the first issues that Rapinoe was on.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, if you can prove that you're bringing in the money and you're not getting equal pay, if you're bringing in the same, well, then you have a beef. Mm-hmm. But that isn't the vast majority of women's sports. That isn't the case. Strictly a money situation.
Right.
It's how much money do you bring in.
Right. Well, and again, this is not going to, this isn't going to change until the other athletes stand up, the other women on these teams stand up and say, no. No, we're not doing this. It will be interesting to see the court cases get to the Supreme Court, because they will on Title IX.
Yeah, eventually they will.
They will.
Yeah. On Title IX. Look, Congress has the ability to do whatever they want.
They can rewrite Title IX if they want to.
Congress can rewrite Title IX and say that everything is co-ed from now on.
Yep.
In order to have fairness, everything is co-ed.
Right.
Co-ed.
Right.
Or at that point, then everything will be men.
Right.
That every sport must be co-ed. Well, you couldn't do that in the private sector.
No.
Well, if it's discrimination because everybody must be equal, then can you imagine the lawsuits that would be because if all right, all professional sports must allow women and men You can't have an all-women league. You can't have an all-men league unless it's based on performance. So you have all-men leagues, and then women sue, and we're back to the fact that, well, yeah, but you changed. That'd be a huge liberal circular firing squad because then you changed what Title IX is. But
well,
Rapinoe
they would abolish Title IX only to get back to creating a new Title IX.
But here's where Rapinoe lives in the delusional world. She was asked specifically if she would support a trans woman playing in the United States women's national team, even if it meant replacing a biological female. She said she would, but added she did not view the act as taking a real woman's place. Absolutely, you're taking a real woman's place. That's the part of the argument that's still extremely transphobic. I see trans women as real women. Would you see them as biological women? That's the whole point. And This is where they're having the problem now, because remember when the transgender witnesses were before Congress a couple of weeks ago, they said, well, no, gender and sex are different. Well, they want it both ways now.
Right.
They want it that gender and sex are different, but gender and sex are the same for sports.
Yeah.
Because you're basically a real woman, which means you're a biological woman if you're a biological man who says you're a biological woman.
Right.
I mean, it's pure insanity.
Yep.
Do they ever go to sleep saying, my God, what I just said today makes no sense at all?
I don't think so. I think they live in a delusional state at all times.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
In Red Radio, he's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right. No real update yesterday on Cocainegate.
No, nothing.
I saw some great points being made yesterday. There might have not been cameras in that hallway, but there are cameras as you enter the building.
I heard cocaine makes you want to skip dinner. That's just what I heard.
Well, that whole thing... I think it's the third dinner that he has skipped when he's been overseas. I think it's because they are scared to death to have him in a situation where he is not scripted for a significant period of time.
Yeah. You don't want him, especially in front of that much press.
That much press, all the world leaders are afraid he'll say something.
Yeah. Because it's
bizarre.
It will be all questions shouted at him.
Yep.
And this week it'll be all cocaine questions.
Yeah. I really believe that's what's going on. Is they don't trust his cognitive state.
Nope.
And he's going to. They probably also know that the whole cocaine thing with those questions that he's furious about that. Nothing is really going his way.
Right.
You know, you look and you'll say, well, the Delaware thing with Hunter Biden is, well, I guess we'll see. But I'll play coming up on the following the bottom of the hour. I think it was a day and a half ago. You had Comer come out and say again, we have more information coming out next week, more bank transactions. These aren't Republican allegations. These are bank transactions that are going to tie up a lot of loose ends. It's going to be, basically a bombshell come next week. We'll see whether it is or not. But I was thinking, well, the whole cocaine thing still, every day that goes on, it's like, you know who did it. You know, you've got it down to one or two people.
Yeah, they know. They know.
They know. They may not be able to prove, and that because they don't have cameras in that section, but they know who did it.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be a big consensus yesterday when there was nothing from the Secret Service. But every day that this goes on, that sits in the back of everybody's mind.
Yep. Because they haven't had a chance, to essentially go through the process of all of the questions surrounding this. This is, and look, the longer you delay some kind of answer, some kind of response. The person responsible was found, and they have been dealt with. But you can't create a scapegoat. Because if it's a real person, you're putting that on that person, and then all of a sudden, their reputation is tarnished. If you're trying to create a scapegoat and put it on somebody who doesn't own it, then you're not going to get away with that. That person immediately would go to the media. So what would be your other option? Creating a false individual. No-name individual employee of the White House. Well, internally, they would know, well, that's not true. Other employees would know that. There is nobody. So if they've got it narrowed down and they think and they believe or know that it's Hunter, you've got a massive problem. He was just indicted. And I don't know where you go with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They don't want him out.
Right.
Because think about it. If you're at a dinner, you may be sitting there for an hour in public conversing with people.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do that.
No.
He doesn't do that. In fact, the most you get from him is if you get the softball questions, the completely softball questions. And I wonder whether, to get those interviews, whether they set parameters of what you can ask him.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to pre-approve the questions with the White House.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, has been done before.
Sure.
The fourth branch of government. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm sorry. I just got so many papers in front of me and so many windows open that at the last minute I tried to grab my headphones and everything else got in the way.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where to start on the whole DOJ, David Weiss, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, whole situation going on. I will say this. The first thought that came to my mind yesterday is Mr. Weiss, is he indicting himself? Because he had come out the other day and said that, let me just get it here. I've got so much here. And we had read parts of this yesterday, the Wall Street Journal article, Hunter Biden's prosecutor keeps dodging Congress. David Weiss keeps insisting he had complete authority to charge Hunter Biden how and where he wished. So why is he so reluctant to answer questions from Congress? In the Monday letter to Lindsey Graham, Weiss repeated his recent claim to House Republicans that he had ultimate authority to charge the president's son, while also providing a few details. The interesting thing is that you have now the IRS agent's boss who said no. That's what happened at that meeting. He told them he did not have the authority to do that. So either he lied to the IRS agents or he's lying now.
Right.
So why did he hold a meeting and say he didn't have the ability to charge? This is what, as an investigator, this is what I think. Why did he tell the IRS agents he did not have the authority to charge, yet he did have the authority to charge? He's claiming he had the authority to charge. Mm-hmm. Why did he do that? If both are true, and I don't know if both are true, I'm looking at it, the possibilities. Mm-hmm. I'm an investigator. All right, he's saying this now. This is his argument. Now, he's not under oath, but that's the letter that he sent to Lindsey Graham, that he had the ultimate authority to do this. Well, he told the IRS agents he did not. And the New York Times, when it comes to the fact that he would have had to have the approval of both California and D.C. Federal attorneys in order to do that, the New York Times has backed up the story with California.
Right.
So why would he tell the IRS agent? Because he had no plans on charging, but he didn't have the guts to tell the IRS agents that?
And he was just making up an excuse.
He was making up an excuse, telling them he couldn't charge, but it was his decision not to do it. But he knew that there was tons of evidence to charge, to go after and charge Hunter Biden. And he knew that the IRS would explode these agents if he didn't do it, which is exactly what has happened.
Right.
And that's the problem for Mr. Weiss. The more he talks, the more questions come up. And so you can say, well, how do you know he's not telling the truth? When he said he didn't have the authority. Okay, let's go with that, as we just did. He did have the ultimate authority. He told the IRS agents he did not. Now, that's if you don't take in, as the Wall Street Journal points out here, Mr. Weiss's letter doesn't say if that's what he told Mr. Shapley and the others in October, and it doesn't answer whether U.S. attorneys appointed by President Biden blocked Mr. Weiss from filing charges against Hunter in their D.C. and California districts. That's why Mr. Shapley's claim and the New York Times reports that it had confirmed the California story. It undermines Mr. Garland's claim that the probe was free of political interference. If Mr. Weiss did have the freedom to ask for special attorney privileges, why didn't he pursue the charges that his team spent years investigating and recommended? The more you get into this, like I said, Mr. Weiss hasn't done himself any favors. It's like he has made himself part of the actual target because he's the one talking. And it doesn't make any sense.
Well, and look, with the other agents, if you're just trying to say that it's out of my hands, it's not up to me, I don't have the authority. That would make more sense than anything in this equation.
And then the other story came out that Weiss admitted the FBI informant form alleging the Biden family bribes is now a part of the ongoing investigation. That's something that you and I asked a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Well, the next question on that is, so you are investigating Biden for bribes. Well, then why would you cut this deal?
Yeah, right.
If you're investigating him for bribes, which would be the president and Hunter, why would you try to put this deal in? And that would be something, if I was the judge, I'd be asking that question.
Well, that's it. Well, I would want to know, if I'm the judge, I want to know, what is he offering? What is the defendant offering here? Set aside this idea of saving the government money on a trial by coming to an agreement. Because on these charges, he's dead to rights. They've got him. There's no reason to make a deal.
By his own statements.
Right.
By Weiss's own statements. Then you had the story that came out over the weekend. The Justice Department briefed federal prosecutors and agents on the team investigating Hunter Biden on that key FBI document containing allegations of criminal bribery, but they did not allow the IRS agents to that briefing. They weren't invited to that. So that's another thing that we know, that in 2020, they were actually looking at the bribe investigation. Why did that disappear?
Right.
Why did a whistleblower, the FBI whistleblower, have to bring that up? Then you also have Andrew McCarthy from National Review. Garland's sleight of hand in Hunter's sweetheart plea deal let me just very quickly here, because I know I didn't print the entire thing because I know it cuts off. It cuts off what I want here. Okay, it's not the first one, so I'll read what I have. It's been quite something to watch Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss squirm. Sweating him on one side are the credible whistleblower allegations of law enforcement agents. He obviously told them that he was not the deciding official when it came whether criminal charges should be brought against Hunter Biden. Pressuring him just as hard on the other side is Weiss's boss, Attorney General Merrick Garland, who is now who in his now familiar slippery style insists that Weiss was always the deciding official and was instructed that if he ran into any interference, he needed only to ask Garland for special counsel authority, and he would be permitted to file any charge in any district throughout the country, regardless of whether the Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys in those districts agreed. The circle can't be squared, of course, but the spotlight is on the wrong guy. Weiss is an empty suit. If we've seen the type once, we've seen it a dozen times. A Trump appointee whom the former president couldn't pick out of a lineup, given that his priority was to whine about the Justice Department, not put a stamp on it. The latter would be hard work, calling for a vision of law enforcement that transcends how does this affect Trump. Now, he's taking a shot at Trump there, saying, Trump, this guy was in there, and Trump just allowed him to stay in, and Trump shouldn't have done that. And basically he's saying Trump didn't want to bother because it's hard work.
Right.
Now, I think Andrew McCarthy is taking liberties there because we don't know why Trump did that. And remember, he wrote the book, just so you know, Andrew McCarthy, The Ball of Collusion,
right,
which attacked Democrats for the whole Russia collusion hoax. So, but you could tell there he's saying he's going after Trump there, saying, hey, Trump shouldn't have. It's like same thing, though. When you look at it, though, he should have never kept Comey. Why did he keep Comey? What are you doing? Don't keep Comey. Don't keep this guy. So in deep blue states with two Democratic senators, either of whom could block confirmation of Trump's appointees, Trump appointed Weiss types, prosecutors who resist angering Democrats while nonetheless brandishing their Republican credentials. These self-styled nonpartisan public servants are administrative state staples, moving from one prestigious title to the next by not making waves. In a case where the investigators are confident they can prove crimes, but the powers that be do not want crimes to be charged, that involves a lot of telling the investigators, there's nothing I can do, my hands are tied. Now, remember, Andrew McCarthy is a former U.S. attorney.
Prosecutor. Yeah.
So there's nothing I can do, my hands are tied, while hoping that the people who are tying your hands but need to deny that they are doing so will not feed you to the wolves if the investigators get angry and decide to call BS on the whole thing in public. This is what has happened to Weiss, but he's not the culprit. He is the careerist caught in the middle. The culprit is Merrick Garland. Think about the nonsensical construct Garland has built around the public question of who sabotaged the Hunter Biden prosecution. That is, who dragged it out for years, willfully undermining the investigators' ability to investigate, even as we were told that there was an ongoing investigation, necessitating resisting any congressional inquiries. Who pulled that off for so long that the statute of limitations lapsed on some of the most corrupt charges? Who choreographed the inevitable sweetheart plea deal? It wasn't Weiss. It was Garland. Garland says that Weiss needed only to ask, and he would have been given the limitless special counsel authority to charge the case as he saw fit. As a result, the feeding frenzy is now focused on whether Weiss really faced resistance from Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys in D.C. and California over the prospect of indicting Hunter, and whether Weiss formally asked Garland for special counsel status while he was telling the agents that his hands were tied by the Biden Justice Department. That's how Garland wants us to evaluate the matter, and it is preposterous. So he just goes on with that saying, oh, this is Garland. which is true. I agree with you.
Oh, I have no doubt it's Garland leading here. There's no doubt in my mind. Garland seems almost proud to want to jump out in front of everything for this president. I'm really kind of surprised that he hasn't been to the podium a little more than he has, because he really seems proud of that.
Well,
but on something like this, the problem is you can't do that without it being overly obvious. But I think for anybody paying attention, it is obvious.
Well, that's why I started out saying, I asked the question, I said, is Weiss indicting himself? And the second part of the question is, and is that exactly what Garland wants? Well, that's what Andrew McCarthy is basically saying.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it that way. Meanwhile, I want to play this audio cut very quickly here. This is James Comer 36 hours ago.
We're going to have an announcement, hopefully next week, of more findings, more disturbing findings that we found. You know, bank records don't lie. People make a big issue out of taxes. People cheat on their taxes all the time, but it's hard to cheat on bank records.
There you go.
All right, then.
So announcement next week.
All right.
With more bank records. This isn't going away.
This is not going away.
And even if Hunter gets the plea deal, it doesn't go away. Because the target from the Republicans is not Hunter Biden.
At this point, you should hope that the cocaine story takes the lead over this.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good point. Yeah. It's 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, every single day this thing just gets, you just keep shaking, your head. But it doesn't matter what happens to Hunter Biden in the plea deal. Of course, the target has always been as it should be. I mean, morally, ethically, and legally, the target always has been Joe Biden. And, what he did.
Mm-hmm.
None of what Hunter Biden, and I don't think the judge should accept a plea deal. But I'm saying that's not going to make a difference to Republicans.
No.
Because
no.
the only one that could complete the bribe would be Joe Biden.
Right. The one to deliver
the bribe
was Joe.
Right. Hunter couldn't deliver the bribe. So we'll get to more of that coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. So when we look at all the developments over the last couple of days with the whole Joe Biden influence peddling, understand, because a lot of people, and we were the same way when we saw the plea deal that they wanted to make with Hunter, no, it shouldn't happen. And I think that when you have that this judge should look at this and say, wait a minute, because I think one of the important things that we found out the other day from Weiss, from the Delaware federal attorney, is that they are investigating the document, the bribe document.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm a judge, I'm going to look at this and say, well, that information we know, the other information, the story came out the other day, and the Justice Department has admitted it, that They had a meeting in October of 2020 on this same thing. And they have never come to after 3 years, this means of not discounting it, which they haven't done. They haven't come out and said, no, this is false.
Right.
Which means you're still investigating it after 3 years. And from what we know from the suspicious activity reports, there seems to be a lot of probable cause here to begin with. Why would you make this deal with Hunter Biden now when you're investigating whether he took a bribe? And for 3 years, you've had this document and can't decide, yet not to charge, but not yet to drop it and say there's no evidence that any bribe took place. But there's two things that we're looking at here. One is until that came out, if they're looking at that document, they've got to be looking not just at Hunter Biden, but Joe Biden's role, because the bribe only exists if Joe Biden exists.
Right.
If Joe Biden was not vice president, and Joe Biden is now president, but if he wasn't vice president at that time, none of this would have mattered. Only Joe Biden is the only one that could have completed the bribe transaction. There is no bribe without Joe Biden.
Yeah,
so
he completes the equation.
The equation.
The quid pro quo.
And so up until now, the Department of Justice wasn't looking at Joe. When now Weiss comes out and says, yes, part of the reason that they said the investigation is still continuing is because they're looking into the document, the bribe document. My question would be, well, were you looking at it before the whistleblower? You had it. You were looking at it in October of 2020. What happened? Did you drop it? Has the investigation been going on for 3 years? Or did you just ignore it and go back to it because the whistleblower burned you? Those are questions I want to know. And if I'm a judge, I want to know, because why would you be so insistent of making the sweetheart deal when you're investigating Hunter Biden? Because the judge is looking at Hunter Biden. The judge isn't looking at Joe Biden because there's no plea deal for Joe. But she would still say, you're looking at him as part of organizing this entire bribe with the president that are extremely serious. I mean, these allegations that are out there that the president of the United States, when he was vice president, was taking bribes. And you guys apparently aren't looking into it, even though the suspicious activity reports from the news items that I see. Please explain this to me, why you're so willing to settle with Hunter when you may believe that he was part of a key part of the conspiracy to bribe and or extort money. Because remember the email that he wrote. That wasn't just a bribe. That was the threat of, we will destroy you. And if I'm the judge, I'd be looking at that, well, Hunter, was he a part of this? Why would you be so willing to do it? And so maybe that's why the Department of Justice was hinting that they may get the date moved back to do the entire deal because it looks so bad.
That's where I was going next. So if there is a delay in this, then where does it go? Because if you move this thing back, that only is because it's only because new things have been introduced. As you mentioned, it could be that a whistleblower burned you on something became public you didn't expect to happen, but you're having to go to a judge now and justify something completely different than what it was, what you thought you were going to present.
And with Comer said they're coming out with more,
and he implied
suspicious activity reports. Yeah, exactly.
Bank records.
They may not be suspicious activity reports,
right? The
ones we were told about, but he said bank records
he mentioned
coming.
Bank records,
which will be what was the word that he used? Drastic or I don't have it here.
And by the way, we said from the beginning, follow the bank accounts, follow the money. That's going to tell you most everything.
And so that's Hunter. But Hunter is not the focus of this.
No.
Nor should have Hunter always been the primary focus. The fact that the Department of Justice, from what we know, except for the fact now that Weiss has said they're looking into the document, the bribe allegations that was with Burisma. But remember, the whistleblower existed when they announced the deal with Hunter. The whistleblower already existed, and they knew all about this. But they have never, the Department of Justice, from what we know, never took the leap from Hunter taking this money to the possibility of all this money going to the families, the family members and everything else, never looked at this and said, should we look at possible bribery? Is there probable cause for bribery here? And of course there is. When you look at all the money being transferred, of course there is.
Oh, man. Yeah.
When you look at all of it. And so the goal is, even if the statute of limitations has run out for the president, impeachment has not.
Right.
Impeachment has not, and not just impeachment, but if you're a political party, politically what you're looking for is to destroy the entire infrastructure. Because if you can make the case where the president has to resign because he's going to be impeached, because the evidence is overwhelming, as the Republican Party, you can look, for example, look at the Senate yesterday. What's the Senate looking into? And I haven't even used it yet. Senate was looking into Live Golf. They're looking at the PGA deal with Live Golf, and I was looking at Josh Hawley talking to one of the representatives from the PGA about the deal that they have with China, and we can't be doing this. So they're the Senate, since it's been in Democrat hands, has done nothing to look at what's going on with the bribery allegations, with the money transfers. They won't touch it. The Republicans understand this is an opportunity not only to destroy this presidency, but an opportunity to destroy the media, the mainstream media, and explain to the American public that this evidence was so overwhelming of bribes, yet it was hidden and kept quiet and covered for by the media and by the Democratic Party at every single turn. That's what Republicans politically want out of this.
And the more evidence that rises to the top, the less that the Senate can ignore it. As more and more evidence is presented in the House or anywhere else, that it's going to be, gets where it's going to get some daylight. Well, at some point, the inevitable is going to be on the table. And I don't know how you avoid that. The only thing you can do as a Senate Democrat right now is hope that it doesn't happen before Election Day 24.
Right.
There's no way it won't, though.
Thing is, so much has come out, even when you think about everything that is out right now, and Comer saying more is going to come out. I think that Comer wants to have a ton of stuff come out next week before the Hunter deal goes before the judge.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think the Republicans politically want to get to the bottom of it, but they're happy with this more than drip, 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 drip that comes out each and every day. Because there's no way you can't look at this and go, my God, when is it going to stop? And then even the cocaine thing on top of it. Because it's not even just that, cocaine was found. I don't know, maybe, it's not pot. American public doesn't look at it as pot, but it's the fact of probably the American public looks at the possibility of a cover-up to protect a family member as, again, it adds to the Republicans' arsenal to be able to say this family can do anything. They can commit bribery. They can, the cocaine. This is what they're hoping, that everything is covered by law. All the institutions that will come after you If you commit wrongdoing, the media that will come after you immediately for any wrongdoing is protecting this president like no other president has ever been protected for criminal acts of bribery. And you can throw the cocaine in because that is anybody else, if that was done and brought into the White House, and again, I'm not saying it's Hunter. I'm saying this is what Republicans are looking for as a great end game if it comes their way. If it ends up being Hunter's cocaine, that would be the thing that everything is covered. This family is covered no matter what. They can commit bribes, cocaine in the White House. It doesn't. That's what Republicans are hoping for politically.
Yeah. That it's just too overwhelming.
Right. And to the point where even if the Senate doesn't, because the Senate doesn't have to deal with it. If it got to be so loud that the Republicans said, okay, we're going to, now we all know they took bribes. Here it is. Here are the witnesses, and they hold the hearings and all this, even before they get to impeachment, before they even get to impeachment.
Yeah.
I think that the Republicans, probably Comer, would want everything laid out. The witnesses have already testified. The depositions have been done. The witnesses testify. It gets so bad. You've got the money trail. You knew they took the bribe. You can figure out what they did. And then at that point, you don't even need to impeach. The pressure would be so great for the president to resign.
Right.
And then you could actually use it and say, the Democrats never touched this. Here was this criminal activity that was happening. Democrats knew it and didn't want to touch it. The media knew it and didn't want to touch it. In fact, they colluded with the Democrats with social media. The Democrats colluded with social media. The law enforcement colluded with social media to protect this bribery scheme of the president. That's what they're hoping for, because that is really that is political ammunition that you don't see very often in any political history of any country.
Right.
Of a free country. In a dictatorship, it goes on probably all the time. But
because at some and here's the thing: inside the Beltway, especially the old school Democrats, those that have been in office, Chuck, for a while, know the truth. What they don't know is what the GOP can get their hands on.
That's a great point.
And this has been known about inside the Beltway. This has been known about Biden for years. We already know that. But the idea was to keep a lid on that jar and keep it buried.
Somebody wrote that yesterday. I think it was a Democrat. I got to find the article. It's like Obama was right. Never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up.
Well, think about it. And then out of the blue, cocaine found at the White House. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's the one more thing.
Yeah, and the timing.
As you mentioned, if it were any other presidency, it'd be like, oh, my gosh, a staffer's totally going to get fired, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you add that to this?
And the longer it goes on, and why? Naturally, because the only person that has had a major cocaine problem is Hunter Biden.
Right.
And then it takes so long where people say, are you kidding me? We're now going into the 9th day.
Right.
And the Secret Service doesn't know who did it. Well, we know they've covered up everything. What is to say they're not trying to cover this up or trying to find a way out of it? That would be natural, because we know they've been trying to hide everything and censor anything that might be harmful to their narrative.
Right.
And sometimes not even knowing. It's the point where it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's just so much has been hidden, and that family protected so much by law enforcement. We've seen the censoring. We saw what happened in COVID, where now people say it's not a conspiracy theory. This most likely is a great probability based not just on the cocaine, but everything else we've seen since the laptop censoring.
Right.
That's extremely strong. It's as strong as actually knowing at times.
I think so.
866-98 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, just reading here, this is Washington Examiner, Byron York. When investigators want to investigate Joe Biden, and this is one of the things we talked about.
Right.
That's one of the things here. The investigators didn't investigate him. One of the murkier aspects of congressional Republicans' investigation of President Joe Biden's financial history concerns an allegation that Biden, when he was vice president, accepted a $5 million bribe from the corrupt Ukrainian energy firm Burisma. The alleged scheme also involved Hunter Biden. Burisma, of course, was a company that for a time paid Hunter Biden $1 million a year to do mostly nothing. At issue is something called the Form FD 1023, an FBI document that is said to memorialize a confidential human sources conversations with a foreign national who claimed to have bribed then Vice President Joe Biden. In the words of Representative James Comer, chairman of the House Oversight and Reform Committee, the FBI confidential human source, Comer continued, was no fly-by-night character. Instead, he was a trusted source who had worked for the FBI for over 10 years and was paid over $200,000 for his work during that time. This is one of our highest paid, most trusted, most respected, most effective FBI informants in the whole Bureau, Comer told Fox Business on June 15th. It was a serious allegation from a serious source, yet the FBI, Comer says, never did one single thing to investigate this. In a June 28th press release, Comer added, the FBI has been sitting on the allegations for years that Joe Biden solicited and received a bribe when he was vice president of the United States. We have no confidence that the FBI did anything to verify the allegations contained within this record and may have intentionally withheld it during the investigation into Hunter Biden's tax evasion. We'll have more on this coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want if you cannot listen live overnight to one of our great radio stations. All right, so we were just going through Byron York's column in the Washington Examiner, just talking about, the bribery allegation here, because that's really the key thing, and not just that, but other, the other money that went to the Biden family, how much of that was also part of bribes. But here they talked about the IRS whistleblower, one of the most respected, as we have talked about before, informants. And none of that has ever, not even a source story, has been leaked to the Washington Post or the New York Times to say that that's not so. And you think about that, with all the allegations that are being made based on evidence and whistleblowers, none of it has been refuted by a source story.
We said that from the beginning.
Yep.
We said this is what you would watch for. That's typically what you'll see. And they would go after the source. They would go after the whistleblower, typically.
And as he asks here about the Burisma allegation of a bribe, Is the bribery allegation true? Who knows? It might be false. It might be a misunderstanding. It might be a political hit job, or it might be true. In any event, the only way its truth or falsity can be established is by investigation. If you don't investigate, you'll never know. That's why top lawmakers, including Comer and Grassley, are pressing the FBI to tell them what the Bureau did to investigate the source's story. That has been the only key question that they have asked the FBI and Justice Department all along. Did you investigate this? And that is what the FBI and the Justice Department have refused to answer. Of course, Republicans suspect the FBI did nothing to investigate and instead bury the allegation, and now they are focusing on who in the Justice Department might have stymied any investigation. In a new letter to David Weiss, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in Delaware who handled the Hunter Biden investigation, Grassley suggests that a senior official in Weiss's office, Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf, repeatedly took steps to frustrate the investigation of Hunter Biden's and Joe Biden's financial dealings. Grassley suggested that the Justice Department cut IRS investigators out of key parts of the Hunter Biden investigation, like the bribery form. Specifically, Grassley cited the October 23rd, 2020 meeting in which Wolf received a briefing on the bribery form from FBI agents. The meeting did not include any IRS agents, which is important because the IRS plays a critical role in federal investigations of financial crimes. The senior IRS official, Gary Shapley, is one of the two IRS whistleblowers who have come forward accusing the Justice Department of favoritism in the Biden investigation. So, and really, if you think about it, nothing that has come out so far has in any way exonerated the FBI, the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, Weiss, Wolf, or anybody.
No.
Nothing. There's only one direction this has gone in. You know, when Weiss came out with his letter the other day, I'm like, okay, how's this being spun? Okay, what's actually in the letter? Well, not really. He didn't answer any of their questions. In fact, he contradicted what Shapley said, what Shapley's boss has said. And no, he didn't contradict it. He simply said he was in complete charge, but he did not deny what their allegations are is you told us you didn't have control. Wall Street Journal pointed that out. He's not answering the question. He said, I had complete control. Well, did you tell everybody else you didn't? He won't answer that question.
Right.
God, this is just... Yeah, these are people that really believe they're civil servants, right?
Well,
and beholden to the public.
But of course, it all points to Merrick Garland,
yes,
running the cover-up show for Biden, like he's done from the beginning.
Yeah, because it all does. I agree with Andrew McCarthy. It all goes to Garland.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier that everyone inside the Beltway has known this about Joe Biden for a while. There were concerns going back years. The question was going to be, will it ever surface? He becomes president and, no problem. Then you get to the midterm. Well, now there's a problem. And there was always going to be a problem with Hunter Biden involved. There was no way the truth wasn't going to see the light of day. So now the only question is, and I think this is, we've seen bits and pieces of this where they don't know what the GOP has. And one recent example is Director Wray at the FBI.
Who is testifying today?
Yeah, is it today? Yeah.
It's Wednesday, right?
It is Wednesday, yes.
Just back a couple of days, it's like, what day is it?
Yeah.
It's part of this week's We're in the middle of this week's shows.
Well, because you don't jump out in front of something unless you believe the other side has it. And that's exactly where they are. As you mentioned, there's nothing to exonerate anyone. In fact, it's only moved in one direction from the beginning. And the question is, how far does it go? So the question, if you're, let's say, Chuck Schumer, and you know the truth, or you suspected all this all along, then your question is, how much will the GOP bring to the surface? Because then Chuck Schumer can do the, well, I wouldn't have suspected this for one moment. We didn't know anything. And there's the problem, too, for the party. This goes back years, and this will be fallout on individuals who were aware of it back then and said nothing. Now, how far that fallout goes remains to be seen.
It can be used effectively in an ad.
Certainly.
Did you see the ad that DeSantis put together? That came out this past weekend? Really effective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and it hits the core of the beliefs, and it did it right. It hit, all the cultural issues, but were specific about it and going after children and everything. I mean, it was the kind of ad that we've said Republicans need to run. It was perfect. Well, you do the same thing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You sit there with your opposition, anybody who's an incumbent. This guy hid by, I can see a year from now, let's say it's Kamala Harris running or whatever. Because Biden is out. If Biden has to resign because of all of this, this is some of the most effective stuff that you can use.
Oh, yeah, there's
this incumbent protected this criminal president.
Yep.
They never wanted to investigate it. They didn't care about it. You had the debates. You throw that out over and over and over again.
Yep.
It's just another thing it's another thing because it hits, as I've said, the one thing that makes this different. We've talked about how we're in a situation in this country now where we're talking reality, that the abstract has hit reality on a ton of different things, and people are being affected by it, and so they feel it personally. But one thing that, even if something doesn't affect you personally, one thing that Americans still hate, almost universal, is a politician not paying their taxes, evading taxes, and taking bribes, influence peddling. American, if you look at it across the board, you probably get more unity on that topic than anything else.
Yeah.
And I don't know where this is going to end. All I know is since October of 2020, when the Hunter Biden laptop story came out, it has only gone every single day in one direction. And then when I'll sit there the other day and when Rice wrote the last letter, I go, what is he trying to say here? And you read it. Does he have a point here? And you read it and you say, no, it just makes it worse for them.
Yeah.
Everything makes it worse.
Right.
Nothing, even when they speak in their own defense, doesn't work for them. And it's only gone in one way for 3 years. And now we're to the point, and you and I have watched scandals. We've seen Russia collusion. We've seen the Democrats outright lie about Trump and actually get a special counsel when they all knew it was all bogus. And here with Biden's, you can't get one source story that is saying, well, we have sources that tell us that it's not, that none of this is true.
Right.
Biden did not take a bribe. Think about it with the Burisma. You would think that there would have been a source, any other time there would have been some kind of source story. Biden didn't do this. Sources say he did not take a bribe. There was nothing. This thing is, and there's been nothing like that.
No, nothing. Where is the passionate denial in unison?
It's not there.
Still, weeks and weeks later, since we've asked it the first time and multiple times, It's still not there.
It's the president with one-word answers. That's it.
Yeah.
He won't sit down. Now, if somebody accused me of taking a bribe, would I sit down and defend myself and cross-examine with anybody? Absolutely.
Yep.
Why? I know I'm innocent.
Yep. There's no way I'm not going to jump to a microphone.
Yep. Nothing. And I really believe that part of why, the cocaine story, depending on where that eventually goes, may accelerate it because we don't know what Biden knows. But again, him not doing the dinner on an international stage, the U.S. president is not there.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time it's happened.
It's a summit.
He does not want, they do not want, the people around him do not want him to be any place for any length of time. For a couple of seconds walking through, he can just say one or two words. They don't want him anywhere where he isn't fully scripted. They don't want to put him someplace where he may have to sit for 90 minutes or an hour for a dinner with the world leaders and reporters hanging around where people are talking informally. They're afraid of what he will say.
Yep. They are. They really are.
Yep. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Lindsey Graham on Fox News yesterday said this: when it comes to the Department of Justice, I don't trust them. They've got to come forward under oath and testify.
Yeah, sure.
So here's what the whistleblower has said. The group of whistleblowers at Hunter Biden got the benefit of the doubt, unlike anyone they've ever seen, and they've been there for decades, and every time there was a question, it wound up being in Hunter Biden's favor. They claim that Mr. Weiss, the U.S. attorney from Delaware, sought special counsel status and was denied that status, and that he wanted to bring charges in D.C. and California and was told no. They don't want to tell me what happened to the 1023 investigation, and I can tell your audience, you're all going to know what happened. Did they sweep it under the rug that is being investigated and found out it was fraudulent? I want to know what happened to the accusations regarding Hunter Biden and Joe Biden taking bribes in Ukraine. I did not get that answer in this letter. I'm not going to stop until I find out how that accusation was disposed of. And that's a legit concern.
Yep.
But as you said, I don't trust the Department of Justice. Put them under oath to testify.
Yeah, look, it was never going to be easy. And with what we have seen just so far, Merrick Garland is willing to do anything.
The problem they have is political, the Democrats right now. And I say political because everything's political. I mean, we say that many times. But you have a public that believes that Bidens are corrupt. That's the problem you have. The vast majority of Americans are already there.
Yeah.
Including a significant portion of Democrats. It's obvious. You can't hide it for that long. And the one thing will be, when will the Democrats have enough? When will the Democratic Party say, we can't have this guy run? We just can't do it.
Right.
Because every single day there's more information coming out, and there is nothing that goes in the direction. There may be something that comes like, hey, this person said this today. Oh, under cross-examination, it fails.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There has been no off-ramp since October of 2020 on this.
No, there really isn't.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.